ACA conference here in Columbus has come and gone, and I attended it, and I want to share some of my feedback with you. I had mostly good experiences. Some, weren't terrible, but also not great. And those are things you're always going to take away from a conference. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that here today on the Cultivating Calmness podcast. Well, as we jump in here, I know I talked last week about going to this conference and I said I would give you some feedback. So here I am talking about some of this feedback. I have never been to an ACA conference. Now, I have been to other conferences, both mental health and non-mental health specific. And I would say for all the ones I've attended, this probably wasn't the best one, but it also wasn't terrible. Like there was nothing, hugely, terrible or bad about it, but there were some things where could have been better, and things you just learn from going to other places and talking to other people and you hearing some of their feedback. So I have a little bit of that, just something for you to, consider, think about when you go to a conference, what you are maybe looking for, what is your purpose. I know when I go to a conference, a lot of my purpose is to not like get CEUs, although that's big. If I'm paying the amount of money I'm paying, I want to get CEUs for the sessions that I'm going to, and I want to try to get as many sessions as possible. But for some people, that is not why they're going. They're not going to the conference specifically to get CEUs. Maybe it's for networking. Maybe it's for connecting in some other way. Maybe it's to be a vendor. Maybe, it's to get some CEUs, but also to do those other things. So if your purpose is to go for, sessions, you may look at it differently than somebody else whose purpose is to go for connecting. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Mine has been mostly to go to learn things, but also to get some connection. And that's where I think it was difficult for the ACA. Now, as with every conference, there's usually, a certain number of sessions that you're going to choose from in each hour and a half block. Okay. So the same was for this one, except it was I didn't even count, something probably between 10, 15, maybe more options per hour. So that made it kind of difficult to pick what kind of session I wanted to go to. And you do the best you can with the title, the description. Sometimes you have access to the handouts, so you can kind of look at those and see, is this something I want to go to? Is it not? Sometimes you show up, and I did that to at least one where I showed up thinking it was going to be one thing, sat for about 20 minutes, and I was like, not for me. And I went and just found another one and popped into that instead. And, it was a little better, but still, there were some hours where I was like, I don't know if I really love any of these, but I'm going to pick one and I'm going to go to it. Some of the sessions I went to, I took, I would say copious amounts of notes. So here's my little notebook. I usually like to just bring, a notebook and devote it just to the notes that I'm taking for that session. Now I still have a decent amount that I haven't used, so we might take this off and use it for, other sessions. But I have my printed notes that I used, and I would take notes on here. And then I also have my written notes where either they didn't have printed notes or they did, but I wanted to take more notes than the space they had provided or, than they had available in their slides, for example. So some had slides or handouts, but it wasn't everything that they were showing in their slides. So I was taking lots of notes. There were some sessions where I barely took any notes. So I was kind of disappointed in some of those. Usually I go to sessions and I have clients in mind. I have my practice and what where I see myself going and maybe what I need a little more information on or help with. And that's why I'm going to those sessions, is to really help to hone my skills, help me to build on what I'm already doing, being able to see things differently, even if I already know the information. I've met lots of other clinicians who go to some of these local conferences. And so, another part of going to these conferences is connecting. So I was able to connect with a lot of therapists, both that I knew more personally or that I've just, seen at other conferences. And we say, hey, we recognize each other. We chat for a few minutes. That's always really fun and exciting to be able to connect with people in that way. And so I was able to do that. There were some where I can't think of their names, but they go to a lot of the ethics ones and they present a lot of ethics related and specific CEUs. And so when I would go to one, they would be there, they'd be taking notes and, maybe like, ooh, that's wrong, or ooh, yeah, that's good. We need to include that in our session that, they're planning. So it was good to just run into people, seeing what they're doing, learning from not only the presenters, but also just some of the other clinicians and connections you've made. So notes are something big. If you go, make sure you bring something to take notes. Unless you're not a note taker and you just store it all up here, then good for you. I can't store it. One of the downsides to going to a conference and being in so many sessions, I think I went to like 8, both Friday and Saturday. So that's 16 hours of sessions. It's a lot. You are just like mentally exhausted. I know when I got home, finally on the Saturday, I wasn't necessarily physically exhausted, but I was mentally exhausted. And then my kids were like, Mom, 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 Mom. And I was like losing it, overstimulated, not like losing it, but overstimulated for sure, like mentally, emotionally, like, oh, that was a lot. And yes, I wanted to see my kids, but then the moment they started like, telling me all the things which I wanted to hear, it was really hard to manage that because it was like, whoa, I need a moment. I need some time. So it was a little difficult, and that's something, to be aware of. Like if you're in these sessions, you may not be physically drained, but like just the mental and emotional like toll and like being able to sit through all those things hour after hour after hour after hour is a lot. So some of the takeaways that you may take, you may need some processing time. Go back through your notes, look at them, review them, see what was it you took away in the moment that you thought was really important, that you really wanted to implement and you wanted to take back and, do something with. So that's something I do have to work on, because I go and then I'll have like my bag and all my stuff and it just sits there. I need to be able to actually, utilize those things more. Not that I don't, but sometimes those things can get set to the wayside when you are busy doing life and you're just getting back into the grind of things. So those are some of the positives. They also had a really large like vendor area. And so that's where this comes from. This is, you usually get some kind of badge with your name and lanyard. And so where I was, they actually had other things going on there too. So they were really checking for your lanyard and your badge. So if I saw a couple of like couples where one was registered and the couple, the other one was with their spouse or something, and they were not able to get into the vendor area, for example. I'm not sure if they were able to get into the educational sessions or not, but they weren't letting people in if they didn't have the badge. And then a lot of times they have these little like cute little ribbons that you add to the bottom. Some people pick one or two. I saw people with like really long ones. I picked a few, like first time attendee, that I'm a licensed professional counselor, that Ohio counselors are the heart of it all, since it was in Ohio this year, and just one that was more silly that says, I'm observing. I thought I might get the I'm analyzing one because I kind of do both and it's just kind of silly. So those were mine. But there were all kinds of things that people could add and choose, and it kind of makes them stand out a little bit. So you usually get some kind of lanyard when you go. And then at the vendor spaces, they have, bags. This is a nice bag. So you can never have too many bags. Maybe you can. I have a bag area in my home just for things like this. So like when we no longer have the plastic bags, or, just to, when I go to farmers markets, when I go places, instead of bringing my purse, sometimes I'll bring like one of these more sturdy bags and put my water bottle, my wallet in it. But they had several people giving away nice, like firm canvas bags. So I got a few of them. But one of the things I like to take away from some of these sessions are the freebies. And this bag is full of mostly freebies. And some of the things were like more for like home stuff, but a lot of it is for my office. So copious amounts of pens. Not that I need any more pens, but I've got pens. There are some pretty cool pens. I'm not seeing the really cool one. It's also teal, so that was a plus. but lots and lots of fidgets. So I have fidgets in my office. I have them in the lobby area. And then I also have like a storage cabinet that I keep like extras in. So if one gets ruined or if I need to, give someone to somebody, I will, like give them maybe one for my office and then I'll go into my storage area and get some more out. I think this was for like glasses or something, but I don't know yet. I have a little like ring for your phone. It's like a selfie light. I'm not going to turn it on because it took a minute to turn it off, but it blinks, it lights up. That was cool. So I got some of that kind of stuff, little like sticky notes, notepad things. Those always come in handy, especially like with clients. And if I'm writing something down like, oh, here's a referral option, here's a name, here's something like that can be really helpful. The Emily program was giving away these cute little stress balls. And I was like, well, I have to have one of those. It's a cactus. And I actually knew several of the vendors, so that was fun. This is just a star. I'm trying to see. I have some pretty cool ones in here that this is like a squish ball, but it's a definitely different feel. It's not the same as, these stress balls. So there's a difference. So I like having those, like mix it up for my clients. This one was pretty cool. It's a tree from Thousand Branches Wellness. There were brains. Oh, these ones were cool. They actually stacked. So they're little Legos and you could stack them. This was from the Counseling Foundation's Your Path to Career Success. Got several of those because they did stack and I thought that was cool. Here's a little dog from Checkpoint EHR. A tractor from Hopewell. I've gotten several from them and they always have different shapes. So I think that's kind of fun. And the one that I didn't pay for, a lot of things. But one thing I had been eyeing and I've been wanting, and I definitely wanted more, but I restrained myself and I only got a couple of things. They came in like a 2-for-1 and the company is Fidget Corals. So what it is it's like an infinity. So it's a fidget and you just keep pulling it through. And so this is a tiny one. As you can see, she had they kept going up and up and up and up. She had really big ones. Those were like $500, the really big ones, but they were super soft. These tiny ones are not the super soft yarn, but they are decent. But she did use the other super soft yarn. I don't know what you call it for all the other sizes. But these are just fun, right? You can sit there, you can do it while you talk. And I like having these things available. So I got a package of 2 of these and they're in my office for my clients. Some of the things I was a little disappointed in was like timing. Lunch was there. We had lunch. We had the ability to grab lunch as like a grab and go type of situation, but they had seating available so you could come and eat lunch. But there wasn't, if you were somebody like me who wanted to attend sessions, there wasn't really time to stop and, sit down and eat lunch and, network and connect with other people, sit at a random table with random people and say, hey, who are you? I'm Kaela, and introduce yourself and chat. So there wasn't a designated time for lunch. So I have been at conferences where there was a designated hour for lunch. So nobody was doing anything. There were no educational sessions during the lunch hour so that you could, go to the vendors. You had that time. You could go to the, lunch and sit and talk and enjoy. You could potentially do other things. Oftentimes, and at this one, there was like a store you could buy from, the, American Counseling Association store. There was an opportunity to get massages. There was an opportunity to get caricatures, to get headshots. So I did take advantage of the free headshots. That was kind of cool. And like a career place where you could talk to them about like your job, your career, your resume, things like that. There were several other like things you could do. But if you were going session to session to session, there wasn't a lot of time to be able to go do those things unless you skipped a session or you left a session early or came late. So, there were some times where I chose to socialize and do some of that, but then still go to the session, but I was a little late to a session. They had after parties and after events and things like that. There was an app on your phone where you would check into each of your sessions. You could select them. You could see them all. There was like a community like chat board where you could post comments or comment on other people's. People might be asking, what are we doing tonight? Anybody want to go? Blah, blah, blah. And you could comment on that, see it, join them, something like that. So that was kind of fun and cool. So like all of those things were good. Just very long days. The availability of snacks or drinks was limited. So that was kind of a disappointment. I wasn't the only one who noticed that. Lots of people noticed that and felt like that wasn't available to them. But what was available were all kinds of other things in the conference center. The downtown Columbus Convention Center had lots of vendors where they were selling you like drinks and snacks and things. So maybe that's why they didn't do it. Don't quite know. So very, filled days and getting to kind of talk with new people and colleagues that I've known. That's always great and fun. It's good to go with somebody, so if you know somebody, that way you can meet up for lunch or, plan to go to sessions together or plan to not go together, but then be able to come back together and talk about the sessions you went to. So like kind of that kill two birds with one stone type of thing so that you can share information and learn things from each other based on where you went. So like those are some of my takeaways as well as all the things I'm going to add to my office now. I actually met somebody who was at one of the vendors and I was telling her about how I'm collecting all of the squish balls. And she showed me hers and I was like, that is genius. I don't really have a space to do that, but she has a shelf where she collects them as well for her clients and staff. And it's just rainbow of all of the ones she collects. And so each shelf is like a different color. And she had, a bunch of different ones. I don't know if she had 100 yet, but she had a bunch of different ones, and one of each kind, on all the different shelves. So that was kind of cool. And, pick and choose whatever one you want. So if you've ever been to a conference, if you ever consider going to a conference, those are some of the things to consider. If I am out of town, so I've been to conferences in Portland, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, maybe somewhere else, and several here in Columbus. But when I'm out of town, like I want to explore. So, when the day's over, I am like trying to go find something in the city to go. I did like a ghost tour. I did a waterfall tour. I did a boat tour. I did, just going to like a restaurant and walking, kind of the town with some people that I met. So it's always fun to just explore the area versus like staying in your hotel and staying in the conference area. So that might mean you miss a session or two, or you work in those things into the schedule. Maybe you come a day early or you leave a day late so that you can do some of that additional exploring in the city that you're in. So, or turn it into a vacation. I've considered that as well. Whereas you turn that into like a family vacation. Your family goes and does things while you're at the conference. And then the rest of the week, you all can do things together. So those are things that you may consider if you decide to go to a conference. That being said, I will be back next week to talk about the Seeking Whole Health conference that I am going to this week. So one conference after another, back to back. I'm actually probably more excited about this one than I was the counseling one. Yeah, it's not counseling specific, but it is health related. I'm a mental health clinician, and I do take into consideration all of those health related factors and bring those into and consider those things when working with my clients. So I love hearing all of this information, and it helps me to be able to hear the signs and understand where, what's going on under the surface with my clients. And that's why I really like the Seeking Whole Health conference, which I'll be going to starting Thursday of this week. So just a couple more days and I will be off to that one. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you for joining me. I will see you again soon.